Is here, NHL Fantasy. I haven't spoken to Pete in so long. I worked with him a ton when I was at Sports Grid for all my Till Bet to This Part followers. Pete Jensen joining the show. You've got to bear with me because sometimes this gets messed up. Thanks for coming on.
Sure thing. Great to see you. And yeah, it's the height of Stanley Cup playoff hockey right now with things just beginning over the weekend. Couple surprises so far, but not surprised at all to see the Dallas Stars and the Colorado Avalanche tied 1-1. Those have been two of the best teams in the league all year, two juggernauts, and I expect that series to go 7 games. So we're off to a good start on that one.
I know a lot of people in hockey betting like to look to overs early, then unders later because defense just gets so much tighter when you get to the later games. Pete, who would be some players that early on you would tell prop bettors to potentially focus on?
Yeah, I think some of these series like Ottawa, Toronto, two teams that shoot the puck a lot, both have good goaltending, but I feel like the offenses are opening up so far. We saw 3 for 6 from Toronto on the power play in the first game of the series. That signals some undisciplined play, of course, from Ottawa, with many of their top players making their Stanley Cup playoff debuts, like Brady Tkachuk, Jake Sanderson. I would look for those two guys specifically to make an impact in game 2. And one thing, like a general strategy right now, like don't get too high with the highs or low with the lows. Maybe an exception to that is the New Jersey Devils because they're banged up. They don't have Jack Hughes. Luke Hughes is now injured too. That's, I'm steering clear of the Devils right now. But all the other teams, whether it's Minnesota, Ottawa, they dropped the first game of the series. Look for them to make adjustments as it goes to game 2 and then target some of their top players in the props market when everybody else is getting super heavy on teams like Vegas and Toronto and the bias towards those teams that you see in so much casual fans out there.
So Mark keeps asking about these first goal scorer props. Who would you say, and I guess he wants it in both games actually, he wants Leafs, Sens, and Toronto, Ottawa, but just overall, before we get into game by game, how would you handicap that first goal scorer market?
Those are tough. I mean, you can always get big numbers in that market. I think that some of the players that are faster players, you can certainly try to target in that market. One guy that comes to mind, like if you're looking at game 2, Anthony Beauvillier for the Washington Capitals, he was playing up on the top line with Dylan Strome and Alex Ovechkin. If you could say, oh, this guy had a breakout game in game 1, maybe he's a faster player. He might be on the ice with those two top dogs for Washington's offense. And maybe his first shift of the game, maybe he finds some breathing room and knocks one in. That's like could be your strategy there. In general, I like to try to lean toward the goal scorers from the regular season who have high shot volumes. 2 guys tonight in the Toronto-Ottawa game that we like at nhl.com/fantasy. Drake Batherson, secondary scoring stud for the Ottawa Senators. Again, the team has bounce back appeal. And then Matthew Nyes, who plays a lot with Austin Matthews, was right around 30 goals in the regular season. He is one of those guys like Tom Wilson, Brady Tkachuk, Matthew Nyes that brings the goal scoring pop, the shot volume, and also the physicality that you love to see these guys rise to the occasion when these games are putting everything on the line during the playoffs and stuff like that.
You said you were staying away from the New Jersey Devils because of all the injuries. The Hurricanes are minus 280. Their total's at 5.5. Clearly, someone's got to score. Clearly, the Hurricanes are the heavy favorites to win this series. Who in Carolina are you zoned in on?
So in Carolina, they have 2 nice rookies this year. Logan Stankoven, nice performance from him. He struggled in terms of cashing in on mid-range shots on goal all season long, whether he was with the Dallas Stars or the Carolina Hurricanes. And of course, bounces back in game 1 with 2 goals, 1 on the power play, 1 from mid-range. So you really like to see that for a young player that many of us, including myself, were really high on in the preseason. Also, Jackson Blake is among the rookie leaders in even strength goals, shots on goal, and goals outright in his rookie class. And those are 2 guys that are joining the mix for Carolina, a team that always outshoots its opponents this time of year, but sometimes comes 1 or 2 goals shy of breaking through and winning the whole thing. Maybe those young guys and the young blood on this roster turn the tide for Carolina, because they have a great path, I think, to the Eastern Conference Final if they can get a little bit more goal scoring and open up the offense.
A couple of teams that are going head to head that know how to get over that hump. Florida Panthers, Tampa Bay Lightning. This is the matchup everyone was looking forward to. Who do you like in this matchup?
I mean, this first one is going to be tough. Even as of right now, we don't know for sure if Matthew Tkachuk is going to be in the lineup. Remember, he was one of the heroes for the U.S. in the Four Nations tournament, and then he hasn't played since because of injury. So if he's out there, I would expect him to make an impact at some point in this series. We don't know for sure, so keep an eye on that up to puck drop. But that could even the playing field a little bit with the potent Tampa Bay Lightning offense. And, of course, the Florida Panthers acquired Brad Marchand as well before the trade deadline. He has not played a game. They used to be nemesis, right? Like when the Bruins would play the Panthers in the playoffs. Now they could be on the same line. So I would look, if Tkachuk is in, look at Tkachuk, or maybe even by association, Brad Marchand. Tampa Bay, a lot of people siding with them right now, but this series is a toss-up just as much as the Colorado-Dallas one is.
Yeah, listen, you know me. I need all your help when it comes to hockey. I know one thing, Florida versus Tampa is an insane matchup. So that's one that I know people definitely want to look at. Last night, we saw Alex Ovechkin in the Caps pull out the win. Ovechkin continues to be everything the NHL needs him to be. He's the big name, goes for the record, hits the goal record this year, gets the win last night for his Caps. How do you bet Ovechkin when he's such a public player?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. You're looking back and you see a crazy stat, right? Let's be honest. When you hear that Alex Ovechkin had never prior to last night scored an overtime playoff goal in his career. But the guy, if you look at his body of work, hasn't gotten past the second round much in his career. Really, the only year he did it was when they won the Cup in 2018 against the Golden Knights. So, I think that he has a chance here. I was mentioning the path for Carolina. Washington's been a much better and consistent team. So I feel like you could look at power play point props for Ovechkin and get a good number there. The shot props are, bloated because he's just so good in that category. But he's pounding out the shots right now. He's in his office on the left side. He's also venturing into the high danger zone like he did last night for the game-winning goal. That was pretty cool to see. But overall, Ovechkin averaging about a half a goal per game in his Stanley Cup playoff career, which is pretty darn good, even though he had never scored an OT winner before last night. So, yeah, look at Ovi in the anytime goal market, the shot prop market, and then certainly the power play point market, because I think there's a lot of speed on Montreal, but there's a lot of inexperience. So maybe over the course of the series, they make some mistakes and Ovechkin makes them pay.
That is crazy. I had no idea he never scored. Wow, that's nuts. Okay, Alex Ovechkin, now you know the markets to bet to try to take advantage of. Do you believe, Pete, in this, Canada can never win or be anything in the Stanley Cup playoffs, whole jinx?
No, I mean, I think that Toronto is, with their coaching and their goalie tandem, could put a better foot forward than it has to this point in the Matthews, Marner, Nylander era, because they're just more well-rounded, and they have coach Craig Berube, who, has won the Stanley Cup before with the St. Louis Blues. So don't sleep on that team. I know nobody is. If anything, they're probably the most bet team out there because of everybody up north supporting them. But
everyone just wants to see it.
Yeah, no, for sure. And the Winnipeg Jets have a great chance too. I mean, nice job by them taking care of business so far. I know the St. Louis Blues are without Dylan Holloway, but they're also missing guys too. Winnipeg is missing Gabriel Velarde. He could return in Game 3. That's huge news for them if they want to try to make this a quick series. Also, Nikolai Ehlers, one of their best secondary scorers, is out of the lineup the first two games, but they're still up 2-0. That's because they have the best goalie in the land in Hellebuck. And I feel like the Jets, even though they're in that tough Central Division, maybe Colorado and Dallas beat up on each other, and then Winnipeg could pounce on whichever one sneaks by in game 6 or 7 and advance to the conference final for the first time in a number of years.
When it comes to the Conn Smythe, it's the best way in my mind to get some good value because, of course, the teams that are favored to win right now, I mean, you're looking at 5 teams that are shorter than 10-1 to win the Stanley Cup to win the Stanley Cup. So when it comes to the Conn Smythe, then you just assume, okay, at this point, I'm going to pick a player who's going to be in there and win it all. Who would you put your money on?
I mean, I think that Nikita Kucherov is a guy that is being underestimated in this market. It's interesting. I've talked about it on a couple of shows today because he is barely in the top 10 in the odds board on most books for the Conn Smythe, but he has the most points in the NHL each of the past 2 regular seasons. He has the most playoff points in the NHL since 2015-16. His team, the Tampa Bay Lightning, won the Cup in 2020 and 2021. And it's one of those situations where his teammate in each of those seasons, first Vasilevsky and then Hedman, won the Conn Smythe in those years. So if they get back there, if they can fend off the Florida Panthers, the in-state rival, and then they can make another deep run, which we all know they're capable of. They could beat the Leafs. They could beat whoever they play in the conference final. And then if the West teams beat up on each other, I mean, they're not going to want to run into the Lightning. So maybe if they get that far, Kucherov has done more than enough the past few years and for his career at large, where if he's a major player in the Cup final, he would well deserve the Conn Smythe Trophy. He hasn't won the Hart Trophy the past 2 years, even though he was leading the league in scoring. And maybe he could, kind of one up everybody and prove his worth over the course of this postseason.
I know people who are here right now, they probably are looking for bets, props. They love player props, etc. I know that fantasy is also a big part of what you do. What do you do to get involved on the fantasy side during the playoffs?
Yeah, I think that, a lot of it translates to the props market right now. There are people doing fantasy pools and playing various games out there. We have, games on NHL.com that people can dabble in, but the props market right now, we cover all year long the shots on goal volumes for different players.
Shots on
even
goal.
Like tonight we were looking at it, like whether it's Pavel Dorofeyev or Tomas Hertl for the Golden Knights. They have a nice matchup against the Minnesota Wild at home. Tomas Hertl has been hitting 3+ shots on goal for quite a while now, and you can still get like a plus number on that. So it's something that where certain guys, the more under the radar, the better, because the casual fans are drawn towards Austin Matthews and drawn toward Alex Ovechkin and drawn toward McDavid and Draisaitl.
The value's gone from those players. That's why you've got to listen to someone like you.
Well, we try to, pinpoint those players. You could actually find our picks on NHL.com/fantasy. Myself, Chris Meany, Troy Perlowitz. We look at the analytics. We look at the edge stats. You could find NHL.com/edge you can click around there and find some good nuggets as well. And some hidden gems in terms of the advanced stats.
Josh Gold wants to know, who does Pete have for the Cup final and winner?
Yeah, so I have Colorado over Florida, but I know I know both series could go either way. Maybe it'll be Dallas over Tampa because both of those series are toss-ups. I will say the Avalanche, it's amazing what they've built since the beginning of the season, where they were just a 3-headed monster, McKinnon, Makar, and Rantanen, and then they had barely any depth. Everybody was injured on that team. They got a new goalie tandem. Blackwood and Wedgwood have been awesome. They got Brock Nelson, Charlie Coyle. They got Lehkonen back from injury. Valeri Nichushkin is a beast. As long as he's in the lineup, I love their chances of winning the Stanley Cup. And he was a huge part of it in 2022 when they did get over the hump. He had probably the best Cup final of any player on that team.
Okay, there you go, Josh. Go bet your futures now, because when Pete says it, I bet it. What are your best bets for tonight, Pete?
Well, we were talking about Drake Batherson. We were talking about Tomas Hertl, Matthew Nyes. Those are a couple of my favorites for goal, anytime goal, shots on goal, 3+. Logan Stankoven, I mentioned him against the Devils without Luke Hughes, Jack Hughes. It's a favorable matchup, to say the least. You're always going to see surprises in hockey, especially with a team like the Hurricanes. Like I said, sometimes they could outshoot a team 40-20 and still lose. So that's why I'm not getting too heavy on the Carolina Hurricanes. But actually, one play, if you're looking for the Devils, Dougie Hamilton is back from injury. And now that Luke Hughes is injured, maybe it's just one of those games where Dougie Hamilton has like 8 shots on goal, whether they win or lose. So, if you could knock up the ladder on the shots on goal and go with Dougie Hamilton for 4+ shots or 5+ shots, that's probably relatively safe, considering the offense is going to be revolving around Dougie tonight.
Former Carolina Hurricane too, so yes. Revenge spot.
For sure. Yeah, you got to look at the revenge. There's a bunch of revenge angles in this series. We'll see if Marc-Andre Fleury gets into the net for Minnesota at some point in the game or in the series against Vegas. But there's Carter Verhaeghe. Verhaeghe, one of our guys at NHL.com was actually looking at him tonight because he's quietly the franchise leader for the Florida Panthers in playoff goals, even strength points, and game-winning goals. This guy's been clutch. Like, if you're looking at like last goal scorer or live line, if the game goes to overtime, I would expect in the Dallas, that's another angle you could play, is the 3-way money line for the game to get to overtime. I feel like Florida, Tampa, and Dallas, Colorado, for all the reasons I've mentioned so far, there's going to be a number of overtime games in both of those series. So jump on it now or jump on it in the middle of the game if one team's trailing or something like that.
It's the only sport that I feel I hear people bet overtime regularly, right? Like, I feel like you don't really hear it much in other sports.
No, it's true. One of my favorite picks from the Four Nations, that epic game between U.S. and Canada, was that the game would go to overtime, and it did. McDavid ended up finishing it off. I know some of the storylines carry over from that tournament. It's kind of funny too, right? You see Connor Hellebuck and the Jets facing Jordan Binnington in the first round with their NHL teams, the Jets and the Blues, after they played each other as the goaltenders in U.S. versus Canada. I mentioned Brady Tkachuk. He had 5 shots on goal in his first game. I like Ottawa's chances of pulling the upset tonight on the road in Toronto, and Brady Tkachuk to hit the goal and the shot props. His first game back from injury was just a few days ago. So he got his feet wet. Now he's going to be coming out for, some respect up in Toronto in that Battle of Ontario.
I love any kind of good revenge spot. Sign me up. Before I let you go, it's hard in these series because when you have hockey and basketball, these leagues only really play each other on one-offs during the regular season. How does your handicap change knowing that these are series now?
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be responses from some of these teams. That's why I was saying don't get too low with the lows for Ottawa or Minnesota. Minnesota, nobody's talking about them, but they have Kirill Kaprizov back. He's one of the top 10 players, I think everyone would agree, who really knows the sport in deep, like that. Kaprizov's, he could pop off at any moment. And, Vegas is a great home team, but Minnesota has some horses on its blue line. And, the rookie Zeev Buium came over, made his NHL debut. Could you believe that in the first game of the series?
No.
He was a little overmatched at times, but I would expect a player of that caliber to make some adjustments. And all of a sudden, Minnesota evens things up and we're talking about a different series. So look at those game 2 underdogs with a chance to bounce back after what they learned in game 1.
That's going to happen throughout these Stanley Cup playoffs. You never know who's going to win. Pete Jensen from NHL Fantasy, NHL.com. Let everyone know what you're up to these Stanley Cup playoffs so people can find you there.
Sure. We're covering the edge stats leaders, the advanced stats, NHL.com/edge. We're updating our fantasy playoff pool rankings. We're dropping episodes of NHL Fantasy on Ice. You could still listen to that preview episode. It's good food for thought, even though we played a couple games. Of course, Tampa, Florida has not played a game yet, so you could still listen to it for that. And we try to hit on the props and stuff like that on that daily story on NHL.com/.